Today we are going to talk about anger, expressed and unexpressed. That is the main topic of our discussion. I would like you to give me a little. So before you give me an introduction, I have this one burning question which I've been wanting to ask you. In simple definition, is anger an emotion? Is anger an energy? Or is anger a reaction to action? How would you define it very simply?
See, Kajal, first of all, everything is energy. Whether it's a word, it's a thought, it's an emotion, whether it's a book, whether it's our bodies. Everything is energy. So, of course, anger is energy. Anger is an emotion, but it is not a primary emotion. Most people, because of its intensity, consider anger to be a primary emotion. It is not. It is actually a secondary emotion. And it is called a secondary emotion because it is an emotion that reacts to two other primary emotions. And those two other primary emotions are fear and sadness.
Okay.
Behind any outburst of anger or an anger that is not expressed lies either fear or sadness, or in some cases both.
Okay. Okay. So when we describe anger as a secondary emotion, does it always come from a trigger?
Everything, every emotion that arises, whether the emotion is a positive one or not a positive one, always has a trigger. There is always a catalyst that brings the emotion forth, right? The trigger may not be an obvious one to others.
Okay. Okay.
So let's assume that there are three of us in a room. You and I and a third person.
Right.
And you are talking to that person. For some reason, because of my own inner child issues, maybe because of some deep set rejection issues, I perceive you're talking to that third person as a rejection from you towards me. You will not even realize it because that's not what you intended. You were just carrying on another conversation.
Right, right.
Because I have perceived it as a rejection, I might seemingly for no reason get up, walk out in a huff and bang the door.
Right.
And you will say, what is the matter? She is always in a state of anger. What happened? You can't see the trigger, but that person experienced the trigger.
Okay, okay. So, what is the difference? The primary difference? Is it exactly the word, the way we say expressed anger and unexpressed anger? Sometimes we tend to keep a lot of things within us, and then one fine day it just all comes out in a really, sometimes in a very bad. Most of the times.
So actually, no. There is expressed anger.
Yes.
There is unexpressed anger, and there is repressed anger.
Okay. Okay.
So the unexpressed anger is when what we're talking about is when we do not express it in the so-called normal way of that we consider as an expression of anger. So people will associate anger with screaming, shouting, hitting out, punching, sulking, pouting, walking away, all of the above.
Okay.
When anger is not expressed in exactly this manner, it is known very often as unexpressed anger. The actual word is actually passive aggressive anger.
Okay. Yeah,
so that expression of anger is when I do not, so if in that same scenario of three people in a room, instead of getting up in a huff and walking away, let's assume I remain seated there. But tomorrow, when we are supposed to be meeting for coffee, I just don't turn up and don't even tell you. So I leave you hanging there for an hour without telling you. And then when you call up and say, El, where are you? Oh, I forgot I had to meet you for coffee.
Ah.
So it is my passive aggressive way of expressing my anger to you.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give you a slight.
Same way, like, you would not answer calls, you would not reply
That's
to
it.
messages.
That's it.
You're
That's
basically
it.
ignoring the issue, or
Or,
you're
or the
the
next time we are in a group,
yes,
I will talk to someone else and totally ignore you.
absolutely.
So I'm kind of trying to get back at you in the same way you got back at me. Right?
Yes.
So repressed anger is not a passive anger. Repressed anger stays suppressed within your system for a very, very, very long time. It is not expressed even passively. Forget an active, open aggression. It is not even a passive aggressive. It's completely repressed. It's never allowed to be shown. And that is the worst kind of anger. It's the most dangerous for health.
Okay. Okay, we have a first question. Actually, Sonali's asked a question. So then, unexpressed anger is equivalent to being polite at the moment? Is that the thing?
It could be a politeness, Sonali, but it may not be. As I said, if I choose to ignore Kajal in a social surrounding, I may choose to do it politely, but I may actually choose to do it very obviously, where Kajal says hi to me and I might say hi and deliberately turn away and start talking to someone else. So I may use politeness, but I may not use politeness.
Okay. Coming to my next question is, we of course know the physical effects of anger on our body.
Yeah.
We know that for sure.
Yeah.
We also know the emotional repercussions of anger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And spiritual repercussions as well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, is a mental health, is it because of anger, or is it the vice versa? So can mental health be the trigger, or is it the result?
The catalyst is always an event that causes fear or sadness. Let's never forget that.
Yeah.
If the fear or the sadness is strong enough to momentarily or over a long term destabilize a person mentally, then the anger that comes forth as a secondary emotion could also destabilize the mental health of that person even more. Also, vice versa, because the mental health is unstable, that person's perceptions will be even more askew and therefore could bring forth to a fresh surge in anger.
Okay. Next question is from a girl called Lavanya Hakim.
Hi, Lavanya.
Okay, she's asked a question: what if a person breaks things when he's angry, etc.? Like things,
So this is uncontrolled open aggression. An uncontrolled open aggression means that there is so much buildup of anger within the human system, within the emotional system, that even though that person is not trying to repress, even though that person is not passively aggressive, even though that person is allowing the anger to be expressed, the volume of energy held within the system is so great that it cannot be contained. We've heard instances of a pressure cooker completely bursting and causing huge damage.
Yes.
That's exactly what happens. The human body is absolutely unable to contain that and therefore needs a very, very strong, violent physical outlet and the breaking of things or bashing up someone or the other.
Okay. Is anger always have to be destructive? There are a lot of people I know, like for example, if I get angry, I just quiet. I just I just want to be left. Don't call me. Just leave me alone.
No, Kajal. What you're talking about is trying to contain your anger.
Yeah.
Right? You're recognizing that you're angry, and you are choosing a healthy way to resolve that anger in that moment.
Right.
So that's not a constructive anger. That's a constructive way of dealing with your anger.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Constructive anger is that anger which is never expressed as violence. Constructive anger is anger that is often, more often than not, angry at an injustice that affects a larger collective. So let's give examples of Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi. These were all men who were very, very angry with systems that were prevalent, that were unfair and unjust to a larger collective. Right? It was where a few were attempting to exploit the whole. They used the anger that they felt to change the situation. And that is where anger becomes its most constructive. Remember, Kajal, anger is a very natural emotion.
I was just going to come to that.
Very natural.
Yes.
There is no person who is without anger.
Yes.
No person, right? Not even a Mahatma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So there is no need to feel guilty and ashamed about being angry.
Yeah.
The important thing, the responsible thing is, how am I using this anger? So if I am angry at a certain system that is exploiting people,
yes,
and I may be one of those who's being exploited, then I divert the force of this energy towards finding a solution that works not only for me, but that works for all.
Yeah.
And I look to finding a solution in a non-violent manner, in a non-abusive manner.
Okay. So what you're saying is anger is always destructive.
No, in anger is destructive, but in many, many ways it's very constructive.
Okay. Yeah, you also can learn from
huge amount. I can, as I said, use that anger that I have in order to change a situation.
Yeah.
And that is how sati has been eradicated.
Yes.
Right? That is how child marriage has been eradicated, because there were a few people who were angry at the injustice of a social system.
Okay. I've been at home now. We've all been at home now for about 50 odd days. So of course there's a lot of pent up energy that we are, undergoing. Yes, there is fear of what is going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
There is sadness also. We're not being able to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
So all of that is resulting in a certain form of an anger that we remove on the next person that is there around us. In my case, it is my mother.
Yeah.
So when that happens, do you feel that it is healthy to express that? Then if it could be a shouting, it could be a ranting, it could be walking away from home, or not doing a task that I've been assigned to do, any kind of a revolt. So you feel that that is a healthy way of doing it?
So Kajal, what you're talking about is known as displaced anger. When I displace my anger onto a wrong person, onto a wrong situation, that person or that situation is not the actual trigger. The actual trigger, let us say in your case, is the virus, is the lockdown, is the quarantine. Mom has to say one thing which in any other situation might have just irritated you a bit.
Yes.
Right now, because you're actually angry at X situation, you are now displacing your anger from X to mom.
Absolutely.
Now, when that happens, and when you realize, right, 5 minutes down the line, 15 minutes down the line, you realize that you have erroneously displaced your anger on mom, on anyone, whoever you have, the best thing to do is to take responsibility for it and to approach that person and to say, hey, I just need to tell you, I vented my anger onto you, but I'm not angry with you at all. I'm angry at X situation. So I'm really sorry I did that. Once one does that, and when you do that repeatedly, when you take responsibility for your displaced anger, you will find that you're displacing your anger much less.
Yeah. Also, Sonali has another question. Sometimes detachment may not be possible.
Yes.
Sometimes. Yeah. So then, what is the best way to handle yourself when you're angry?
I agreed, Sonali. Detachment is not always possible. In fact, in moments when we are really riled up, detachment is very, very challenging. And my suggestion to you is this. Initially, start off from a place of self-leniency. Now, this is what I mean. When you give yourself permission to blow up in that moment, but you ensure that as soon as realization strikes you, you make the effort, a very conscious effort, to explain yourself to the person and to say these very important words, I am sorry for my action. Each time you do this, the next time there is a trigger, you will be able to handle yourself better, because by taking responsibility and also by not resisting that moment, you've actually subconsciously you've trained your system to deal with an angry moment.
Okay. I wanted to know, are there any quick remedies, or you feel that it's just a matter of time for you to come back into balance? Because of course, when you're angry, you've lost your balance. It's absolutely evidently that.
2 quick remedies and 1 long-term remedy.
Okay.
1 quick remedy you already mentioned, and that is Bach flower remedies.
Yes.
Now, when you get irritated, sorry, excuse me. Now, if you find that you are a person who gets easily irritable, carry a bottle of crab apple Bach flower with you.
Okay.
Along with rescue remedy. When you're in the presence of a person who is irritating you, when you're in a situation where you're getting irritated, don't allow it to escalate into a full-blown anger.
Yeah.
Excuse yourself for a moment from that situation. Go and take 6 drops of crab apple and take 6 drops of rescue remedy. In 5 minutes, you'll be able to deal with that irritable trigger much better. Okay. The second one is, if you have anger issues, right, and you are intolerant and you're impatient and you're irritable, use switch words.
Yes.
On a regular basis. So, for example, I have a lovely switch phrase which I use: calm down, all clear, serum.
You want to tell them how to write this, Nilofer, so that they know.
You don't need to write it. You just keep chanting it in your mind. Calm down, all clear, serum. There's another switch phrase that I love, that I actually give to children to use when they are angry about a situation. Together divine, chocolate concede.
Wow.
Yeah. Together divine, chocolate concede. Now, switch words are not as immediate as the Bach flower remedies, but when you use the switch words on a consistent basis and you chant them in your mind repeatedly again and again and again and again, I promise you it will make a difference.
No, I can vouch for that, because there have been switch words which I still till today do.
Yeah.
Which is the one for manifestation, which you had given me a long time ago.
Yeah.
You had told me, and it's become like a ritual. You just keep saying it as you would want to say it.
Absolutely.
So I do know for
and the long term that I mentioned is definitely meditation. I have found that meditation brings you into a state of balanced, centered, grounded. And on my YouTube channel, which is EllaeenahJF, there are two specific meditations that I have channeled for anger.
Sure.
The first meditation you do is clearing the baggage of anger, and you do that regularly over maybe 3 weeks, and then move to the second meditation, transforming anger consciousness into consciousness of love.
Okay.
And I can guarantee you they'll help you.
Okay, so Nali has sent a really good observation. I think she probably practices as being a teacher for herself.
Yeah.
That as a classroom teacher, I realized that the most angry kid in my class needs the most love.
Yes, Sonali, because he or she is the saddest kid in your class.
Yeah.
And when the home environment is not a nurturing environment, the child is extremely sad, but also the child is very, very, very fearful. Remember, the guy might be big and strapping and tall and macho and, pumping muscle and whatever, but every child needs a nurturing, loving environment, because if it's not there, they are sad and they are scared, and some of them need to hit out, lash out. So anger has been a journey that I have personally been on for a very, very long time. So it is a subject that is very dear to my heart, because I know personally, I know the relationships I've lost, I know the friendships that I've lost, I know the hurt that I have caused those who did nothing but love me.
Yes. Yes.
And I wish I knew back then what I know now, but also the truth is, I know now what I do because of what I did back then. And it made me look at myself and say, this is not who you really are. What is going on within you?
Yes. Yes. So do you feel, Elle, that in most cases, when you get a person who's coming to you for counseling or for a session and is dealing with anger issues, is it most cases something to do, of course, inner child, I'm sure it's an inner child issue that they're, but as we said that in our last session, but do you think it is most of the time from within the very near surroundings, or it could be anything?
Like, well, it could be anything, Kajal, but naturally, the ones I'm closest to are the ones I have the greatest expectations from. And when those expectations come to naught, I feel betrayed, right? And that betrayal brings forth, again, sadness or fear or both. And that is why there's an angry reaction. So the level of expectation that we have in those who are nearest and dearest to us is way more than what we would expect from a stranger. And that is why you don't really get angry at a stranger. And you might actually look at a stranger and say, you know what, maybe they're going through their own problems. Let's not be judgmental. But if your mom did exactly the same thing, you would get judgmental because you would be sorely disappointed.
It happens to me every day, every day.
Yeah.
So expectations, yes. Have you also in your experience, I'm sure that you're counseling a lot of students, a lot of children who are coming maybe from, from problematic homes, from terrible situations, and of course they're carrying a lot of anger either for their parents or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how do you constructively deal with them? Because they're so.
It really depends, Kajal, on the age.
Okay.
So if it's a very, very young child, it's very likely that the child doesn't know that the child is angry. But let's say the parent brings the child to me with something like an eczema. Now, my first question is, why would a child of 4 years, 5 years, 6 years be so stressed that it's coming out as eczema on the skin? The stress is the stress of anger. So I would speak to the parent to ask about the environment at home, but also to ask about the environment in school. I cannot speak for other schools, but schools in Mumbai, many schools in Mumbai, I will not say all, there are some lovely schools in Mumbai. Many schools in Mumbai have a very unfriendly environment towards children. The teachers come from a space of, if the child does well, I can give myself wawa on the back. If the child does badly, it reflects badly on me, and so I have to take it out on the child. Plus, the child has peer pressure, right? Plus, the child has to deal with expectations from family. Now, all of this makes the child extremely angry but unable to express. So, all the anger is repressed. Now, if there is a case where the anger is being repressed, then I will suggest to the parent that the child should be taken for something like play therapy or art therapy, which is not my realm of work, right? If there is a passive aggressive anger, like the child is taking away your lunch and not allowing you to eat,
Yeah.
or the child, you walk there and the child very subtly puts his leg down so that you fall, I'm going to figure why the child is doing this for attention. So depending on the age, if the child is older, let's say 11, 12, 13, 14, of course teenagers, I treat them as adults, then the consultation becomes very different. Then I would rather talk to that child alone without the adult present. Always assuring the child before the parent leaves the room. So the parent also hears that whatever is discussed between the child and me shall remain confidential. But if I feel there is the need for the parent to become aware of it, I shall inform the child and only then shall I tell the parent. So then comes, things like bark flower and switch words and talk therapy. And also for both young and old, there's a lot of energy work.
Okay. So Lavanya has another question again.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. Is that, there are people who have anger issues.
Yes.
But they don't necessarily believe in therapies or
Yes.
modalities.
Yes.
So she's asking, can we do proxy chanting? You mean chanting for somebody? Is
the answer is yes, you can, Lavanya. But, taking responsibility for one's health and resolving anger is, of course, all about emotional, mental health, always works better. But if you believe that an X person is just not going to be responsive, then of course you can chant for that person. Yes.
Okay. Generally, I have observed, we always say, right, don't make decisions when you're angry.
Yeah.
And because in 100% of the time, you probably are going to go and regret what you have said or done. So do you feel that when you try to constructively take care of that situation in post you calming down, you think that makes a lot of difference? I mean, not everybody will.
It may not.
Exactly.
You have to understand that when you are angry and you make a decision, you are making a decision out of a very confused state of mind.
Yes.
None of us can think rationally. None of us can think logically. None of us can think out of the box and find another solution when we are angry. Acting out at that moment will naturally cause what you're saying, some consequence which is not very happy for us. If you want to get back on that project, the only way to do that is to tell that person, I'm sorry for, having derailed that project at that time, but now I'm in a better space. I have all the people resources and everything, all the resources in place. If you are willing, we can always come back on board. And then leave it. Don't be disappointed if that person says no.
Okay.
Leave it.
Okay. So Sherry is asking, or she's rather saying, no, she's asking, sorry. Anger actually is when we are not in control, although at that time we think that we are in control. So that is a big difference.
So there are two instances. Two completely different scenarios. One is where anger controls you, and one
Yeah.
is where you control the anger.
Right.
When you control the anger is what I have called constructive anger. You can view a situation. Now, I'll give you a small example, Kajal. Let's say the coastal road
Yeah.
and the trees being felled, etc. Right?
Yes.
Facebook was filled with angry comments and people running down XYZ, and everyone from top to bottom was called dishonest and liars and da 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 da. Right?
Yes.
All of them was spewing anger, which means anger was controlling them.
Right.
My question to you is, did they make an iota of a difference?
No. The road is
Why?
still going.
Because anger was controlling them.
Yes.
And we are talking of one coastal road. Mahatma Gandhi fought a battle without spewing anger and got a nation free. Why? Because he was controlling the anger. If only activists would realize this, that by spewing out anger and by spewing out hate all over social media, I am attaining zero. Zero. Nothing is happening. Nothing. Not an iota of change.
Absolutely. I
Because
agree.
you allowed anger to control you.
Yeah.
Constructive anger is the only way you can bring about a change.
Okay. You know, a few years ago, when we were talking about certain changes that were going on in my personal life, and
Yeah.
I used to talk to you,
Yeah.
one of the things that you had told me at that time is whatever you are feeling, write it
Yep.
and throw it away.
Yep.
I think you used to call it an anger letter, like
Yes.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
write. I mean, it could be bad words, good words, and don't go back and read what you've written. Just write.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I felt that really works very,
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
So can you are there more such
You
techniques?
see, yes, Kajal, because expression of anger does not mean that I have to hurt you. Expression of anger means I am taking responsibility. I am admitting to myself, L, you are angry because. And the because is either L is very scared or L is very sad or both. So that is the first point. Admit to yourself that this is your anger. Now let us assume I am angry at Kajal. Okay? I am admitting this is my anger. Now I want to release my anger. So let us say I will start writing, Kajal is a bitch, she is this, she is that, she is da 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 da. I wish I could kill her. I wish nothing works out in her life. Da 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 da. All the possible curses and abuses.
Right.
Right? I tell people, don't be ashamed. It's not going to harm the person. It's not going to, because your energy intent knows why you're doing this exercise. Put it all down. Don't read it. Tear it up, burn it, throw it away, flush it down. Do it every day. One day you ring me and you say, but now, Elle, I don't have anything to write. Oh, fabulous. Now go and give Kajal a hug. The next way of doing that, I find that very, very, very effective.
Good, I want to know this.
I go and punch the living daylights out of a pillow. Dappa dup. And then the choicest of abuse and the whatever I need to say, and you are useless and you are this and you are that and whatever, that bicharo pillow quietly takes everything, but L is free. And then I can go and speak to the person without any issues because I'm totally free. But why am I totally free? Because the first thing, before I punched that pillow, 100% responsibility was taken. This is my anger. That person is only a catalyst. This is my anger. This is my issue. Only when I take 100% responsibility can I 100% clear it.
So moving on, pillow punching. Okay, I think that's going to be my new hashtag from today. Hashtag pillow punching. Anger letters for sure.
Yes.
And
Meditation.
meditations. These are the.
I
These are.
go back to my own channeled meditations, Kajal, and I cannot tell you how they help.
Have you, in your experience, have you seen cases of anger issues which were not dealt with correctly lead into mental health issues and depression?
Oh, sadly, many times.
Any age for that, or you're seeing it all through?
All through, Kajal, and sadly, more and more and more kids. Because you see, what's happening, Kajal, is that the parents are very busy leading their lives. The mother is either going out with her friends or has her own career. The father has his business, has his career. Everyone is living their lives like little islands. And the child is lonely, the child is sad, the child is fear-filled. So even in children, this acting out of anger is seen more and more and more. Yeah. And it definitely leads to mental collapses. It leads to nervous breakdowns. Relationships are dysfunctional. The person cannot hold on to a job. And, basically life then seems to be heaping one thing after another on this person, and eventually the person just collapses.
Do you feel that, especially with children who come to you with anger issues or take any kind of help for an anger issue, how much does peer pressure have an importance in them being angry?
Huge.
When I mean peer pressure, I'm actually trying to ask you is that, I feel that today's children, and especially the young mothers, I mean, I guess if I was married, I probably would have been in the category. But I feel that the expectation is that my child should be the number one at everything.
Everything. And it's not only about my child should be number one. I had a client, a young mother, as you're saying, Kajal, who came to me for a channeled card reading because she was so distressed. When she had gone for a lunch with her friends, she realized that all of these young mothers had put their kids into some 20 different classes, whether it's table tennis, art, singing, whatever. Those children were just being, I don't know, geared to be what? She had her child in 2 classes, which the child wanted to join. And she came so distressed, she genuinely wanted me to answer her, am I doing something wrong by my child? Is my child going to grow up to be disadvantaged? Am I being a bad mother? Am I not really looking after my child's needs? This is what happens. This peer pressure amongst the parent group is ridiculous, and the peer pressure then moves down even to the children. So I will not go to this birthday party because you've not given me a gift of 3,000 rupees. And I can't take a gift of 500 rupees because everyone there is going to get a gift of 3,000 rupees. So I won't go to that party.
And that fear then leads them to becoming angry at their parents.
That's right. And that anger will lead them to then stealing.
Yeah. So because I'm seeing, you know what, of course, we were it's been years since we were in school, but I never remember that I had to go for every class. Or for us it was I think weekends were there and you would develop a particular talent that you wanted. And if you didn't want to, then you didn't have to.
That's it.
But now the competition of my child versus your child is so much, and the only thing they discuss also within groups is only their children and their progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Their children, for many of them, have become trophies.
Yeah, projects. They're literally projects.
My child won this. My child has this certificate. they have forgotten, and absolutely, Sherry, you're absolutely right. This aspect of nurturance has been forgotten. And the parent and the teacher, please never underestimate the role of a teacher in a child's life, even if the child is 15 years old, Kajal. And so for me, it is a matter of great joy when students of mine who are now today parents in their own right call me, chat with me, send me a really loving message on Teacher's Day, on my birthday. You know, somewhere you've done something right.
Yeah.
So the teacher and the parent are constantly using this child as a trophy. They've forgotten that this child is mind, body, heart, and soul. And there is no focus on these four vital pillars. The focus is on how can I expand my own ego, and how can I use the child for that. And I'm really sorry, some parents will think this is very harsh, guys, but I am passionate about this subject because I know how sad, how angry, how lonely children are.
And I mean, and as they kind of grow older, it just gets worse,
And then you wonder, why is this person an antisocial element? How can this person be anything else?
I agree. I completely and totally agree. So there are two more scenarios that I wanted to understand. One is, what about those people who have undergone maybe sexual molestation, that kind of anger that they have?
That is huge. And you know, that is very, very often both. It could be both. It could be a passive anger. And the passive anger, Kajal, is when the molestation is within the family or friend circle.
You cannot talk about it.
You cannot. You may have spoken about it, but you've been told to shut up, or you haven't been believed. So that passive anger, I can't tell you the number of women who come to me and I am like, wow, this sexual abuse in the home or in the extended family is shockingly rampant. That's when the passive anger comes up. When the molestation is by an outsider, by a stranger, very, very often it is an aggressive, it is an open anger, and it comes with hate, and it comes with the need to take revenge. Trying to counsel such people needs a lot of gentleness and a lot of care and a lot of nurturance. You can't give them gyan. You've got to allow them to vent. You've got to allow them to give them a safe space in which they can say, I hate men. I want to kill all men. If I had a gun, I'd kill that person right now. You've got to give them that safe zone. Only once they've vented that whole energy are they then going to be open to full healing.
Okay. So, and then there are also certain scenarios where, let's say, a couple has split or divorced, or the man has either left the wife for somebody else, or the wife has left the husband for somebody else. In either case, they've cheated on each other, and it's been for that reason the divorce purely. And in most cases, we will see that, if the child is with the mother, then the child will never forgive the father for leaving the mother, or vice versa, that for that matter. So that is also a kind of an anger, right?
Oh, that's a very big anger, and that anger comes from disappointment and sadness.
Yes.
It also comes from fear that now I have one parent, I don't have two parents looking after me. Will I be okay? But here that anger that the child feels very naturally is kind of fueled by the parent, one parent or both. So one parent will talk against the other parent to the child. Your father is like this, your mother is like this. The child doesn't know who to believe and what to believe.
Yeah. And if you take the other aspect of a second marriage, or like for example, sometimes after you get divorced, you may decide to either get married again or whatever, and it's not necessary that your child will love the person
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
may not love the person for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
They could be angry at that person
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So how would you ask them to deal with it? Because you
With
can't tell the child you need to get used to it. You know,
Not at all. You
it's
have to deal
absolutely
with it
unfair.
with a lot of understanding. Even though I'm saying that, Kajal, as the parents, some parents are very understanding, some parents
Yes.
are very patient, but they get emotionally exhausted by the anger of the child. And yes, at that time, the parents need to be propped up, the parents need to be healed, because you have to just explain to the parent that you are the adult here. I'm sorry to say this, but you are going to have to be the one taking the primary role. The child cannot do it right now.
Okay.
So you help the child, as I said, with play therapy or with art therapy, with bark flower. Bark flower remedies work amazingly with children and with dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last point actually was that, so now we've actually understood all the various kinds of anger.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go over it again. So there is expressed, then there is unexpressed,
Yeah.
then there is repressed, then we have
Repressed. Repressed.
repressed, then there is displaced anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, main
Yes,
types.
absolutely.
Okay. Now, and to deal with each of them is a different thing.
Yes.
Also, to how you internally deal with your own anger, there is different ways, whatever works for you.
Yes.
But given some remedies, bark flowers, switch words, meditation is your number one.
Ho'oponopono.
I was just going to ask
Excellent.
does that work?
Excellent for anger. Excellent. So
We should.
Ho'oponopono is excellent and tapping is excellent, Kajal. Now, these Ho'oponopono and tapping can be taught to any person of any age.
So, my last point I wanted to make is that we discussed last time in our inner child session that your inner child issues will always start when you are very young because
Yes.
of your surroundings.
Yes.
And most likely, if you do not learn how to deal with it, it probably carries on till a while.
Yes. Yes.
Do you feel that anger or an anger issue that you have, of course, it's one of the reasons, definitely could be the inner child, but you feel that it also constantly harms your inner child over and over?
All that, absolutely. It's a vicious circle, Kajal. And the most difficult part is to break that cycle. And the way to break that cycle, Kajal, is only self-realization and recognition and an acknowledgement that this is my anger, that Kajal, mother, father, sister, husband, child, has nothing to do with it. They are my catalyst. This anger is mine. It comes from my inner child.
Okay. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, Kajal. Thank you, everyone, for logging in. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining in.